Okay, welcome back, and we are doing Unit 3 for modifying a worksheet. I have also done Unit 1 and Unit 2, so if you want to go back and review any of that for just some of your basics on Excel and also some formulas, then you are more than welcome to go back and review those. On Unit 3, we are going to be talking about modifying a worksheet. We are going to learn how to insert, delete, and adjust cells, columns, rows, and then we are going to search and replace data. And then we're also going to check for spelling in a worksheet. Okay, so in topic A, we are going to learn how to insert, delete, and adjust cells, columns, and rows. So you have an insert and a delete option. When you do your rows, either you can bring up the dialog box, and when you do your delete on your rows, it will automatically come up because it wants to know what you want to do if you're in the middle of your cells. So do we want to shift those right when we delete? Do we want to shift them down when we delete? Do we need to enter a row or enter a column? And then here, if you wanted to do just an individual cell instead of a row, okay, or a column, then you would shift cells left, shift cells up, shift the entire row, or shift the entire column. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's say that I did not want my tax column any longer in this particular Excel sheet. So if I wanted to do that, then I would click on the whole entire row, and then I would right click, and then I would delete. Okay, that one just pulls my entire row over. Okay, if I wanted to take one particular cell, I would right click and I would delete. It wants to know where I want the rest of those cells to go. So I can either shift the rest of these cells up, or I can shift this cell over, okay, or I can shift the entire row or shift the entire column. I just want to shift that one, so I'm just going to say okay. Okay, it doesn't like that because this is actually a formula. So in my previous one, when I talked about our hashtags reference, that's what it's saying. I deleted something that was in that formula and now it wants it back. So I'm going to do Control Z as in zebra, and it undoes everything that I just did. Okay, so if I wanted to turn around and delete maybe here, I would right click because I don't want that in there any longer, and I would delete. Okay, so it changes all of that information. And I didn't need to shift it up or down because I'm actually deleting the entire row. Okay, so that's kind of how you do that. And then if I wanted to come in here and I wanted to add this back for my commissions or my taxes, I would click on C, right click, and insert. So anytime that you want to insert to the left, that's where it inserts at, you click on the cell that you want it in between. And then I would put my taxes back here. Okay, and then I would have to redo all of my formulas. So just know that you have that option. And then if you wanted to come back in here and you wanted to insert and you wanted it to be your TV, okay, and then you would have to enter in all your data back in here. So you have different ways to do that, and then you can also go into your Home tab, and then you could come over here to your Cells group. And so within this ribbon area here, you can insert, and you have options to insert cells, sheets, columns, and then you also have options to delete each one of those things. So when it talks about adding a sheet or deleting a sheet, it's talking about these two tabs down here. Okay, so if I came in here and I wanted to add several sheets, but I decided I didn't want number 4 anymore, then I could actually just delete it and it would come back down here. Now notice that it deleted 4, but it kept the actual sequential order of each one of these. So if I wanted to change that, then I would just double click and I would do sheet 4. Okay, and then if I wanted sheet 2 to be at the end, I would just take it, hold down my left mouse key, and I would just move it to the end where the arrow would drop it. Okay, or move it back where the arrow drops it. So those are going to be where you insert and delete. And if you delete certain cells, then just know that whatever you're doing, shifting them, then that's where they're going to go on there. Okay, so you have your width and your height adjustment. We talked a little bit about this on the Unit 1, but you do have a manual fit, so you can just drag it to adjust it, or you can double click in between the columns to adjust. You have your auto fit feature, and this will format and auto fit your row height, and it will also format and auto fit your column width. And then you have manual height and width, and so this is in your home, your cells, format, and column width. So let's take a look at all of those. I will reiterate each section that there are multiple ways to do one thing. It's whatever you are comfortable with. So this is like 3 different ways, so whichever one you're comfortable with, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's look at the manual fit. So we're going to drag to adjust, or we're going to double click to adjust. So if I had all of my columns and I had them all squunched up, okay, and you couldn't really read them, oops, scrunched that up a little too much, okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click in between each one, okay, and that is going to adjust it to whatever is the longest in that particular cell. So see, this has a hashtag, this has a hashtag, that means that it's not long enough. I simply double click and it does my column width for me as far as an auto adjustment. Now let's say that I wanted the tax column to be just a little bit wider, so all I'm going to do is put my cursor in between C and D and wait for the solid vertical line to come through with the arrows on the horizontal. And then I'm going to adjust that particular column. The rows, it's going to be the same exact way. If you don't like the height of it, then you can pull these down, and if you want those heights bigger, okay, then you just pull it down to where you want it to be adjusted to. And as you pull that down, it'll tell you right there in the area where it says height 24.60, and it's 41 pixels. Okay, so each time I move it, that number moves too, in case you want this one to be the same thing and this one to be the same thing. However, this is where they talk about, we're going to go to the manual height and width. Okay, so you're going to go to your Home tab. You're going to go to your cells. And we're going to format, column width, row height. Okay, so let me highlight each one of these rows. Okay, and then I'm going to go to format and column width, and I want to tell it that I want it at 25. Okay, so I do 25 and hit OK, and it extends every one of those columns that I have to 25. That is obviously a large number, so I would probably come back in here and adjust it a little bit, and I'd go column width, and I'd go, maybe we need to go down to 10. Okay, so 10 looks good. So then we're going to come here, and we're going to drag down, and we're going to make sure, because this one's one height, this one's another height, this one's another height. So I want to make sure that my formats are correct. So my row height, I want to be maybe, let's do 11.5. And then hit OK. And then that is going to be my row height. Now, if I knew that these were going to be a little bit shorter like this, okay, then you simply put your horizontal solid line and then your vertical arrows, and you double click, okay, to get each one of those to auto fit in your area. Okay, and then let's go to the hide and unhide on your command. So if you do not want someone to see a particular column, okay, you have like your employee, and then you have your total, and then you have your average. Well, maybe this column in between A through G was everything that they had sold throughout the whole entire month. So this is going to suppress those columns and rows from being seen. You can unhide them if you do not have your worksheet protected. But just know that, whoops, sorry, if you have this information, so let's say that I don't want you to know that this tax is different than this tax, right? So I'm going to click on this column, so it highlights the whole entire column. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hide that. Okay, so now the only thing that you can see is my product, my cost, and my total tax, and then what my total cost is. Okay, now I can come in here and you have to highlight B to D, right click, and unhide, and then it will bring that back to you. Okay, so you can either hide it or unhide it. It depends on who you're sending it to and how much you want them to see. But again, if you do not have your worksheet protected or you did not save it as a PDF, then they are going to be able to unhide that particular area. Okay, so just kind of practice what we just went through on your height of your columns and the width of your columns if you want to double click it. If you want to use the particular format, just make sure that if you do turn here and you do your format on your height or your width, make sure you have everything highlighted that you want to be affected, but don't highlight it on the inside, highlight it down here, or you need to highlight it across depending on what you're doing. So go ahead and practice those particular things that we just went through, as well as hiding and unhiding columns and hiding and unhiding rows. Okay, so on topic B, we are going to go through searching for and replacing data. This goes with if you have information that you cannot find and you have large spreadsheets. If you know that you have something misspelled throughout a whole entire spreadsheet and you want to go back and change every one of those, this will allow you to search for all of that, make one change, and then it replaces the data completely with what you should have had spelled correctly or you should have changed at that time. Okay, so this is going to be on your Home tab, your Editing ribbon, and then Find and Replace dropdown. So let's take a look at that. So here's your Home tab. Here's your Editing ribbon over here. And your little magnifying glass for searching. You drop that down and you can either do Find, Replace, and you can just look for those particular areas if you want to go to. Okay. So if you want to find something, when I hover over this, it's going to tell me that Control F is my shortcut, and I am able to find that information. So let's say that I want to find the word nails, and this is a large worksheet. Okay, so I would do Control F, and then I would find nails. Or even if I didn't know if there was an S on the end of it, then I could at least find nail. And anything that comes up with the word nail or nails in that is going to be right here, and then also right here. If there were multiple of them, then I could do Find Next. I just did Find All. The other option you could do here is just hit Enter. If you wanted to find bolts, you would hit Enter, and it would tell you each place that you could go to find bolts. And if you do Find Next, obviously there's no other place, and so you would be able to do that. Okay, and I'm going to misspell bolts for just a minute. Okay, so when you have this, you can do what you want to find on your options, and then you can format it, and you can search your list and find all or just find next, because maybe you didn't need to change every single one of them, and that's okay. So when you come here and you do Find and Replace, drop this down, go to Replace. Okay, so I want to find the word B-O-L-T-Z, and I want to replace it with the correct spelling of B-O-L-T-S. Okay, so now I want to find what is misspelled, and I want to replace it with what is correctly spelled, and I want to replace all. Okay, so all done, we made one replacement. So it tells you how many times that it did the replacement. Okay, so now I look at that and I'm like, I really wanted that capitalized. So now I want to find everything that is lowercase b-o-l-t-s, and I want to capitalize it with capital B-O-L-T-S. Okay, so I want to replace all. It is changed over here, and it says that we made one replacement. So if you have a massive worksheet and you think that you have the same misspelling or the same number that is entered in incorrectly, okay, so if I have 2.16, that's obviously right there, or since that's a formula, we won't do that one. So if I have $2, okay, I want to replace all of my $2 because this is a massive spreadsheet. All my bolts should say 225. Okay, so I want to replace all. Oh, but they couldn't find it. Let's see. Okay, let's do a Control F. And let's find $2. Huh, interesting. Let's see if we just find 2. Okay, so that has a 2 in it, that has a 2 in it. Okay, so if I find that 2 and I want to replace it with 225, like if I want to go through my whole spreadsheet, then I can just replace this 1 and it'll be 225, or I can replace all the ones that have 2, which obviously I don't want to do. I needed it to be a little more specific and it didn't want to do that for me. So that's okay. On numbers, it might be a little more difficult than your actual product names or like people's names if you misspell those. I know I do all the time, so I completely understand. Okay, so that is going to be your find for Control F, and then also on your home, your editing ribbon, and then find and replace drop down, you would do replace, find what you're looking for, replace it with this, and it even gives you the options if you want to replace it in the sheet, the row, or if you wanted to look in a formula. So you could get a little bit more specific with those options. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's say I wanted to go 200. Let's see if this one works. So I wanted to do it by oh, I need to change that back first, don't I? Okay, so we'll change that back to $2. And we'll go to replace. And I have my options here, so I had clicked that button. And we'll match the case, the entire cell content, and find next. Nope, it just does not like that $2, which is okay. So, but at least you can get a little more specific with it if you were looking for anything in particular for a name or a formula for that matter, that you needed to change that formula on. Okay, so find and replace. There is a no format set. Okay, so this is your find. What do you want to find? You want to find south. There's no particular format to the south, so it could be uppercase, lowercase. It doesn't matter if it has the word south in it, such as down below it says southwest. It contains that word, so you're not finding a specific match on that for just south. Okay, so then you have replace. So if you have south and you want to replace it with southwest, again, there is no format. It doesn't matter if it's uppercase, lowercase. You want to match the entire cell content in your sheets, rows, and formulas. So all of this is what it's talking about. Okay, so you can do that. And then you can go into replace all, find all, and you know that all of those are sitting there, and you're going to replace it with southwest. So you do have those options. Instead of trying to find it, you know, find next, find next, find next, and then click on it and change it, and then Control F, and then find next. So this is one that you can do all at once, no big deal. You don't have to highlight anything in the sheet in order to find that. It just finds it because it's in the Excel sheet itself. Okay, so then we have Find and Select on the Home tab, and we have Go To and Go To Special. Okay, so this is going to be the advantage of using this. You're going to use the dialog box over name box. and that is going to go to the Go To dialog box, and it saves a list of cells to which you have previously navigated. So how amazing is that? That it tells you everything that you have previously been into, that you've navigated through, and then what you did with it. Okay, so we're going to go to the Home tab. So stay here. We're going to go back into our Select and Find, and then we are going to Go To. Okay, so I have not been to anything in particular that I've made huge changes with because I changed that back. But if I had changed that, then that would be in there. So let's see if we can go in and do a find. Whoops. And replace. So I want to replace 2 with 225. Find all. Okay, so it found that. And then I want to replace all. And it says I have 1 replacement. And I say OK. And I'm going to close that. Go to my Go To. Oh, it still says I did not change anything. Interesting. Okay, so I may not have navigated through a specific cell. Like I didn't put in here that I wanted to go to B4 and change that. So that's probably why it's not listed in there, even though I changed it on there. So it will only do your cells that you've navigated through, not the information you've changed. I apologize. Okay, so your Go To on your Special dialog box. This allows you to select multiple cells and avoid choosing one cell at a time. You can go to Home, Editing, Find and Select, and Go To Special. So that was the other one that I was in. So if you can't find what you want to on Go To, then you can go to Special, or you just go to here and then go to Special. Okay, so it'll bring up both ways. And then on your Go To Special, you can go to all your blanks. And then if you wanted to fill all your blanks with zeros instead of leaving them blank, you could do that. If you had different column differences, you could fix it. And then if you had different regions, so if you had like all of it, like the southern region or the northern region or however you have that, then you could actually come into here and change all that information. You could go to your last cell that was changed. Mostly though, you're going to either use your formulas. Okay, so if it was text, numbers, or any errors, or you're going to use your blanks. A lot of people like to find the blanks in the worksheets, so they can either fill it with zeros or they can just completely take them out because they shouldn't be there. Okay, so let's bring everything together that we just learned. Okay, including going through topic C. So we know how to find something. We know how to adjust and insert for our boxes. We know how to go in and get those changes replaced. So let's talk about using the proof and the research tools. Okay, so on your spelling dialog box, you do F7, review, proofing, spelling. Okay, so you have a couple of different ways you can do this. Okay, so you can go to up here to your review tab, and then you can go to proofing, which is this group right here, and then spelling. Okay, do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet? The answer is yes. I want to check at the very beginning of the sheet. So it's all right, you're good to go. There are no spelling errors. Okay, but if I were to have this as B-O-L-T-Z, and I did a spelling check, okay, it wants to know, is that the correct spelling that you really wanted, or do you want it to be bolts with an S, or blots? Maybe you didn't even mean to put bolts, or maybe you didn't mean to put a Z at all. Okay, so I want it with bolts with an S, and I want to change all. So anywhere that it found it, I want it to change. my spell check, and it was to put that in there, and I actually have it to where I wanted it to be products with a Z because maybe that was part of my logo or whatever the case may have been. I can either ignore this one once or I can ignore everything that is spelled just like that. And then that way, if I add it to the dictionary, then it means that it will not misspell that name again, or it will not spell check that name again. Okay, so it'll put it in there as products with a Z. And I can change all, autocorrect, or add to my dictionary, or I can go ahead and ignore it once or ignore all. It just depends on what your preference is and what you're actually trying to accomplish on that one. Okay, you also have a Thesaurus task pane. So what this will do is if you're at a loss for words, it suggests another way to say what you mean. Okay, this is very important if you are one of those that you use the same word over and over and over again, and you want to kind of give it a little diversity. So you would use the Thesaurus task pane, which is also in our review tab, right next to our spelling. We go Thesaurus. So what is another word that I could use, and we'll spell it correctly, for products? Okay, so there's different kinds of products, or you have goods, or you have yields. Okay, so you have a wonderful thesaurus at your fingertips to where you can give it different names. What's another name for nails? Okay, so pins, spikes, tacks, pegs. In case you're also wanting to get maybe a little bit more specific with what you're trying to describe. So the thesaurus and the spell check are actually some really good tools for you to use. Okay, so in your Thesaurus task pane, you can search the term. Here are your search results. Okay, you have your result options, so you can click on it and you can either insert it or copy it depending on where you want to put it. And then you have the dictionary drop down on where you want, if it's English, or if you want it Spanish or whatever you're trying to get accomplished on that one. Okay, Insight Task Pane. This is on review, and this is your insights. So you can explore with Wikipedia, and this just gives you an insight on different areas that you can find information. Whoops. And then continue to look at that. So here's your review. Okay, and here's your insights where you can look it up. Drop that down. Okay, so it's going to load your insights so you can explore, you can define, you can do a web search on products. So it depends on what you're clicking on over here. For widgets, it will tell me what widgets are. You know, if you want to find out what nails are or what they're made of or whatever the case may be. So just make sure that you explore this on your insights too. It can give you more information if you want to just drop that down. And then maybe even insert it into here, or if you want to define it. What do nails mean? You know, or what does products mean? Or, you know, just kind of pick and choose what kind of tools you want to use on your Excel sheet, how you want to look at it. If you want to use the thesaurus and you want to get different things. But, I mean, most of the time when you're using an Excel sheet, you know the product that you want and you know the specific name of it. Okay. All right, so that brings us to a close of a short unit of 3. Okay, so in the next unit, we will learn how to do formatting a worksheet. So this is going to be applying text formats, applying number formats, aligning cell content, apply styles and themes, and then apply basic conditional formatting and create use of templates.